What's up? It's the Coaster Craze, and today I'm doing a new ride review for Zamperla Giant Discoveries. So just to specify, this is not going to talk about any like theming or setting elements, so it's for no specific Giant Discovery since they're all pretty much the same ride. And I assume that this is probably going to be pretty similar to the Giga Discovery, which is the 170-foot tall, I believe 75-mile-per-hour model. So slightly taller, slightly faster. That's Wonder Woman at Six Flags Great Adventure, Crazanity at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and Joker at Six Flags Fiesta Texas, and I believe Crazanity at Six Flags Mexico as well. And so yeah, just tell me in the comments if those actually give a very different ride. I'm going to try to ride one of those for the first time this year. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So I'm going to start talking about the restraints. And unfortunately, they're over the shoulder, which is something I didn't realize until I was sitting on the ride. I strapped it in. And unfortunately, the seat is a little uncomfortable as well, which was not super fun. I also found the vest restraints that were the over the shoulder ones to not be the most comfortable, but still they were pretty good and they did allow for a ton of airtime. However, I will caution, at least on my ride, on one of the more powerful positive G moments at the bottom of the revolution, I got like a further notch down on the restraint. It's one of those that kind of goes down further as the ride goes when you get some more intense positive G forces. So just be warned, after that, I started getting a lot less airtime out of my seat, which was unfortunate. Not much you can do there, sadly, especially because your feet are dangling, so there's nothing for you to push off of. So yeah, just something to be warned about. I do wish the restraints were a lap bar, or at least a vest restraint where it doesn't go down further. So that was unfortunate. And now with the actual ride experience. So at least the one at Six Flags America, it has a pretty long ride cycle, and it takes a really long time to get to the full height. And so the start off was like not super interesting, not as exciting as I was hoping for. It's one of those rides that really gradually builds momentum, which is pretty cool because you never really know how when you're going to get to that top moment, like when you get to the full swing, the full arc. And that's kind of cool because it keeps you guessing and you keep thinking that you reached it. You're like, "Oh my gosh, we're at full swing." And it's like, "Nope, we're going even higher. We're going even faster." And that is just so exciting when you get to the full 240 degrees and you realize, wow, we finally made it. And the rotations start to pick up. I will say at the ride, it's not as much of a spinning ride. Yes, it does obviously spin, but they feel more like rotations as the pendulum goes back and forth. So you're not going to get any super fast spinning motion like on some of the other smaller flat rides that have a ton of centrifugal force to them, which I thought was a good idea. I like that it just rotates and doesn't go on a crazy spin. And as it picks up height and speed, it can allow for some amazing views in terms of just where you're facing. Because of the rotation, you get different views as you go, which I think is one of the biggest assets for the ride, in that it's not just a simple pirate ship where you have one view the entire ride. So on some of them, when you're facing the ground as you go down, you get an insane foot chopper. It is really surreal. You're like, "Oh my gosh, we're hurtling," because your legs are dangling. Like I said, you're like, "Oh my God, am I going to reach the ground?" So that's pretty scary. And then, but my favorite part in terms of the view was actually when you're over the midway. I know not all of them go over the midway, but a lot of them do. And I think that is a huge benefit of them, in that if you're facing the ground, you get a crazy view that the only other ride I can think of that provides this view is Falcon's Fury at Busch Gardens, Tampa. And when you rotate and you're facing straight down at the ground, which happens on this ride, and you see all the people over 100 feet below you, and it is insane. You really get to understand how tall this ride is, how high up you are, which I think is sensational. And in addition to that, there's also crazy views, which I'll talk about a bit more later, when you're just facing the sky, when you get to the full rotation and the full swing, and you just don't know where you are at all. It is insane. So when you get to that full 70 miles per hour, the full swing, it just feels so fast, and it's a very sustained speed too when you get to the bottom, because you're going to keep on experiencing that. And when you're facing the direction that you're going in, so the direction that you're going to get that crazy foot chopper sensation, you get an insane amount of wind in your face. And I was shocked by this. This was one of the biggest surprises of this ride. I don't think any ride has given me more powerful wind in the face except for King Ka front row, which obviously that's kind of unrivaled. And it is just crazy. It makes you feel like you're going so much faster than 70 miles per hour, which of course is already super fast, especially for a flat ride. That just delivered so much more intensity and really, really made me just understand how powerful this ride is, why it's so hyped up. And of course, with all this wind in your face, as you go down 70 miles per hour, you're going to get a ridiculous amount of positive G's. I already said how it makes the restraint go down further because it's so powerful. But while rotating, it's just an insane experience. And I think it rivals some of the most intense roller coasters out there. I've heard of some people actually graying out at the bottom of Harley Quinn or any of these giant discoveries. And I totally understand why that can happen because you're repeatedly getting slammed into your seat at the bottom of these 150-foot tall, 240-degree arcs. It's insane. And then when you pair that with some ridiculous sustained airtime, which of course, yes, the restraint can push down a bit, sadly, I would call this kind of in the flagector lane where it mixes the sustained amounts of like floater airtime because you really do feel like you're floating, but you get a bit of a yank that maybe isn't like El Toro or anything, but you are ejected from your seat. But I wouldn't really say it's just like a coaster type of airtime. It is really something that's unique to this ride that you can't really experience on any other non Frisbee ride, which I think is really, really cool and something I wasn't expecting. And I think it is one of the best examples of any ride, coaster or otherwise, in delivering the extremes of both extreme positives and extreme negatives, which is something that usually you have to pick one or the other, or on some special coasters, you get both. But on a flat ride, to get both of them, that is pretty much unheard of, at least on any flat ride I've been on. And when you're at the top, like I said before, the 120 degrees, it is so disorienting. You almost feel like you're upside down because you're in overbank turn territory if it was a roller coaster. And this, you can't even tell, especially again, when you're facing up at the sky where you are. You just see your legs flying up around and you don't know if you're fully upside down. You can't tell, even though you know, at least I knew how far the arc would go. It is just a crazy experience, and you really feel like you're just flying through the sky. It's such a freeing and exhilarating ride that it just leaves you with such a great feeling. I think it rivals some of the best B&M hypers in that floating sensation at the top. You were just up there for a while out of your seat. And again, that's why I really wish there were lap bars that allowed for a bit more give and didn't push down farther as the ride went to really heighten that experience. But still, you're getting just floated out of your seat like crazy, but it still has the intensity of ejector and of course the intensity of those positives at the bottom that make it such a well-rounded ride. And in terms of being well-rounded, it doesn't suffer from what many other flat rides suffer from in that it's not repetitive really at all. The rotation plays a huge part in that, as I said before, with you getting different views as you go around and also different experiences with the foot chopper, or you could be just facing the sky, or you could be facing sideways. You don't know where you're going to be facing, and each time it allows for something else. And because of the pretty slow increase in ascent as you're going higher and higher, and with the descent, you don't spend so much time at each height level because it's constantly changing in elevation. It's not like you just get to the top and you're like that for most of the ride and then it just slows down all of a sudden. So you're not spending too much time in just one height, and each time you're at a height, you're spending different rotations. Each revolution, you're going to be getting a slightly different experience as you're oriented a different way. So it leaves a very non-repetitive ride. And at least for Six Flags Americas, it's around a 3-minute ride cycle, which I'm not sure how long the others are. I think this is on the longer side, but it really makes it worth the wait because it is such a full experience. It's longer than pretty much any coaster I can think of, and it's not repetitive like all the flat rides. And I think that's something that's just insane. It's really, I would say, better than most roller coasters I've been on, which is something I can't really say about almost any other flat ride. And though by the descent portion, because of this being such a long ride and mostly with the positives, I wouldn't say the rotations played a part in this. I did have a bit of a headache because it's just such an intense ride and it's very prolonged. I would definitely recommend this. I would say that this is something that, at least for me, I know lots of people love to marathon these. I could never marathon it. I would probably never ride it multiple times in one day, but this is a must ride every time I go to the park. So overall, like I said, I think this is better than most roller coasters I have ridden. I'm still deciding if it is my favorite flat ride of all time. It's between this and Falcon's Fury, but I'm leaning towards this because Falcon's Fury is kind of a one-trick pony, or I guess I should say one-trick Falcon. And this is, of course, like I said, probably the most close to any flat ride I've been on that kind of mirrors the variety of sensations that a roller coaster offers, while still offering something that's very distinct to itself that you can't experience on anything outside of a frisbee ride. Now, I'm not sure if all frisbees are like this or if this is something that really the Giant Discoveries provide, because again, I've only ridden Harley Quinn Spinsanity. I've heard the Giant Discoveries are the best example of frisbees. I'm going to try to ride a bunch more variety this year and in the coming years to really just understand frisbees, because I've been missing out. This is arguably the best type of flat ride out there, and I'm a huge drop tower fan, so this is really something special. Get out and ride a Giant Discovery. I am rating this a 9 out of 10. It is an almost perfect flat ride. I would give it a 10 if it had better restraints, but that's just a small gripe. This thing is insane. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this review. I know it got a bit long, but I was so excited to talk about this after all this time. Stay tuned for a ton more videos coming soon. This is Gray signing off. Goodbye.